Well, here I am again. It's November 1st, and we're still circling the drain. And I haven't voted yet. I'm going to wait for the real day. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about how many Taperites do you need in your life? Now, many people are thinking that Waterman Taperite was not the correct name they should have come up with. It should have been Taperwrong, because many people think that it's, including me, I am one of those people that think this, that it's sort of a very poor man's 51. And, but in their attempt to copy the 51 without being sued by Parker, they couldn't quite completely cover up the nib with the hooded bow, so they didn't cover it up completely. They left quite a bit of nib showing, as you can, I think, see. A Parker 51, for those of you that don't know what a Parker 51 looks like. Where's a Parker 51 when I want it? Oh, come on. Well, you know what a Parker 51 looks like, right? You don't need me to show you. Why don't I have a 51 there on my desk? Here's a 51. Come on done. So a Parker 51 and a Taperite side by side. You see, one has a little tiny, it's iridium plus a couple of molecules worth of gold are seen through at the bow on the Parker, and the Waterman has much more nib showing. So a Parker 51, just to remind you, is Johnny one note most of the time. There's not enough nib exposed that it can actually flex much. Now it can. There is a difference, as you can see right there, between the up and down stroke. But it's quite limited, whereas the more exposed nib allows for the nib to come out, lift up off the feed a little bit more. You get more of a flex. Now, if you get in your time machine and go to the stationery store when these things were brand new and asked, oh, I want one of those new Taperites, but I want it to be flexible, the sales clerk would start laughing and peeing in their pants, because they're not flexible in the same way that Waterman standard nibbed pens were flexible. So you'd be out of luck and made fun of, pointed to on the street for asking for something that didn't exist. But these days, they provide me and some other people with a perfectly usable pen that can provide more flexibility than a 51. Now, why do I bother? Well, I just do sometimes. This particular nib is not as interesting to me as, I'm trying to find it. Where did I put it? As other Taperite nibs can be. Is this it? No, that's a 61, which is giving me problems. Well, maybe I don't have it on my desk anymore. Did I retire it? Let's just, I know we've done this before, but I'm going to do it again. Maybe it was this one. Is this the one that I broke? One of these Taperites that I've been using recently has a crack in the barrel, and I'm just wondering where it's located, because it had a really nice, it's like this nib where you actually do see much more variety available in it, and this is a really nice pen to draw with or to write with if I actually wrote anything, and I really find it very pleasurable because I feel almost like I'm writing with a 51, but it's a flexible 51, but I know that it's a Taperite, so I have to do all sorts of imaginations to make it work. That's obviously not a Taperite. That's not a Taperite. This is a Taperite that has a nice, it's a short, stubby pen, as you can see, and it has a stubby, bulldoggy nib, which seems to fit nicely with it. Okay, back to the pen I bought on eBay. This was $9.95 plus some amount of money for shipping. So, and I did put a sack in it, and it does work. So I think I got a good deal for a completely good, working, usable, gold-nibbed fountain pen. The reason that it went for so little, I think I was the only bidder, is because of this. The end of some of these pens of this era had a transparent stern to the pen. 100-year pens had them, and some pens of this era had them, and they turn to sugar candy, cotton candy. They just disintegrate, as you can see. Oops, and the pressure bar falls out the back. And they, yes, it's a problem, and yes, collectors hate that. But look at how nice the pen looks. When you post the cap, you can ignore the crumbly bit at the end, and people will look at you and only laugh at the fact that you're using a Taperite, not that you're using a broken Taperite. So cosmetic issues like this don't bother me as much as they bother you, or you, or you, or you. In fact, almost every single one of you, this would be a deal breaker. But I want you to know that even a pen that has a broken back, broken end, broken stern, can still go forward. Its bow is still perfectly functional. It doesn't impede in its ability to ply through the water. Now the Stockholm, when it ran into the Andrea Doria, here's what this is the before picture of the Stockholm. Here's the Andrea Doria's starboard side. This was perfectly fine, the bow was fine, and then they ran into this, and this sank, and this one, this part was all crumpled. So it couldn't go quite so fast on its way back to New York to get repaired. If it was going backwards and ran into the Andrea Doria back here, well, I guess it would break its rudder and its propellers would get all screwed up. But let's pretend that it didn't go that far. The rudder and the propellers were still okay, and there wasn't all that much damage to the stern under the water line. It could still go that way at full speed ahead. So this pen can go that way and really any direction, full speed ahead. Would I use this pen for anything other than drawing the Stockholm and making all these little scribbles? Does this pen have character, or is this nib writes like most Schaefer pens write, firm and factoidally emphasis is on the facts, ma'am, just the facts. No opinions, no flowery wording, just the facts. That's what this pen would write. How would it draw? It likes to make straight lines. It doesn't sort of pull me into the drawing. This little, where did it go? The short little stubby one here. This nib is very aggressive. I mean, it's just really, really fun. And it wants to write angry. There'll be lots of nouns, but there's going to be a lot of verbiage. I hate that word. There'll be a lot of verbs and adjectives and adverbs. This wants to do adverbs. He spoke angrily. He sat on his stump stoically, sat on the stump determinedly. This just wants you to mean what you say. This is the if the present occupant of the White House were to actually use a fountain pen rather than a magic marker, stupid thing, to sign his names, this would be one that he might like, because it's loud and it's angular and it's thick on the downstroke automatically. You don't have to work at it to actually make it be loud. It's automatically loud. This one, it's growing on me a little bit. I may see some, these nibs are kind of hard to deal with because you can't really pull them out in the feed. You can't really adjust them, but sometimes you can, where you can maybe have them stick out just a little bit more than they might normally do. You'll get a little bit more flow, a little bit more flexibility. Did I change this at all by doing what I just did? I think I may have done so. It's a little stingy with the ink flow. There might be a little bit of clogification in the feed. But we'll see. It's quite a nice pen. Other than that, I mean, it wants to write. It was tired of being ignored for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. And now it's not being ignored. What do you think? Write your answers below. Yeah, I think we just, before you write your answers below, let me just see something here. Don't try this at home. Using my grip of, my iron grip to see if I can pull this nib out just a little bit. Rocking it back and forth. Is it coming out? I don't think it is. I don't think it's been moving at all. It's just my imagination. Anyway, it's sort of a fun pen. And if you ignore that, which it'll be in your, you'll see this problem for all of 1 second between the time you put the cap on the pen and you put it back in your pocket. So if you can take a long blink while you're doing that, you'll never know, will you? So yeah, this nib is nice. It's not as nice as, was it this one? No. Which one was it? This one? Yes. It's not as nice as this nib. And it's not as nice as this nib. But it's okay. And for $9 plus shipping and whatever, it's fine. It'll make me $9 worth of happy plus shipping. It'll make me $14.50 worth of happy for this Taperite. Even if it's a taper wrong, it still can go forward. Okay, you'd have ink in you. It seems stingy with the ink flow. Again, I may not have cleaned out the feed well enough. Look at my hands. They're filthy now. Bye.